This is a reaction and somewhat of a rebuttal to, I would say, I guess, some of the media heavy hitters, we'll call it, talking about my press conference questions. And I love my press conference questions. I think they're straight to the point and they're what the viewers want to know. From the financial struggles, asking Sexton, to asking Deegan about the possibility of taking out his teammate to win the championship, to now Tomac potentially going to KTM. I don't really find an issue with that stuff. My goal is not to be friends with the riders. My goal is to get a reaction out of the riders, to create a moment. And I don't get why the media wouldn't be wanting to use these as, I would say, clickbait or anything to help elevate the sport, because everyone knows I am not a journalist. You know, I'm a tutorialist. I'm an analyst. I would even go as far as to say I'm somewhat of an innovator. You know, I don't own any intellectual ideas, but I love it when I see Stewart doing recaps, when I see AC and Justin Brayton doing riding breakdowns, when I see Racer X start highlighting better lines, when I see the track breakdowns, when I see Jason Thomas actually going behind the gate and letting everybody know that they're all running, you know, the scoop tires and all this little silly stuff. Like, I believe that it's a ripple effect. And the people that have these ideas, then they can feed off of them and make them better. To even the stuff that I show about the bikes that other teams may possibly be looking at and comparing. You know, like, progression happens when competition excels and it innovates. Okay, and the last thing I'll say before I get into the reaction here is that, you know, cynics criticize while critics analyze. And it's not like I asked AP how much he made, you know, because heaven forbid people do that.
How much money have you got?
How much money I take this year or in general?
In general, what is your net worth?
Now I don't remember very well, but it's a good number, yes.
That is creating a moment. It's nobody's business, but it creates a moment. And even going as far as in, like, MotoGP.
Valentino, do you practice going flat out through the gravel traps at the ranch?
No. Usually no.
He laughed about it, but that was kind of like, hey, are you practicing going off track?
Max, why have you had so many accidents?
I don't know.
Those are tough questions, okay? You know, it's not like this is straight up UFC, which creates good moments.
Mentioning that Conor McGregor is not a championship fighter. He only has 2 to 3 rounds. Yet in your professional career, you've only went to the 5th round twice and lost one of them. What the fuck are you talking about? What the fuck are you talking about? That's the champ! That's the fucking champ right there!
Yeah, that's going a little too far, but it creates moments. And again, no disrespect to the riders. Like, I respect them from putting their life on the line because crazy things happen. You know, they can get paralyzed. They could kill themselves. Like, I respect the hell out of the riders and what they do for our entertainment. And truthfully, what I said, it could have been worded a little bit better. Yeah. Is it going to be, do you guys get along? Are you happy to potentially have him as a teammate? Hypothetically speaking, of course.
Hey, dude. You kidding me? Frick. I think, well, if that happened.
See, if it was just a play on words, and so many people. I guess we'll get into this stuff here, okay? And I can talk a little bit more. But there was 4 people at the press conference, and I know for a fact there's 10 to 15 people that have the ability to be at the press conference to represent the sport, and there was 4 people there. And truthfully, I don't necessarily like going to the press conferences. You know, it's not my cup of tea. It's not my specialty, but I feel a responsibility to the sport when I'm invited to cover the sport, to represent the sport and go to those press conferences and try to create those moments, those entertainment moments. Ask the tough questions. Get it in there. I don't need to be at the press conference.
So,
Well, can I throw this one in? This is hilarious if you folks watch the post-race press conference. Johnny Hopper's in there and asks Aaron, hey, theoretically, Tomac has already signed with KTM and he's going to be your teammate next year. What
I'm glad that they actually used my name this time, though. That's helpful, at least.
do you think about that? Theoretically, and AP's pretty much like, yeah, brother, it's going to be awesome. I've had such great teammates. This is going to be great.
no, he didn't. No, he
just
didn't.
sitting there probably like, bro, what are you doing? He
So
pretty much
AP.
said, I got to ride with Dungey. I've had Caroli as my teammate. I've had Cooper Webb. I've had Chase Sexton. This is going to be awesome, brother.
No, he didn't. Did he really? Oh, wow.
I don't think there was even maybe 2% of like, I can't speak on this. What I didn't. Oh, AP is a
great.
gem. Now, what I didn't do, I need to go back and watch and study Tomac's facial expressions as AP is saying this.
Yeah.
And that's what I caught on camera, is I caught Tomac's expressions.
I will have been teammates with Chase, Coop, Ryan Dungey, Tony Caroli, and now Eli and Marvin. Like, if that's not a solid lineup for teammates in a career, I don't know what is. So yeah, I'm stoked if that happens.
I believe that it was a beautiful question, and truthfully, I'm a man. AP's a man. He could have easily just told me to no, I can't talk on that, right? Okay, same thing when I asked Sexton about the financial troubles. I knew exactly what his answer was going to be. It was going to be, nope, can't talk about this. You can talk to the guy that writes the checks, right? But it needed to be asked, okay? So many people ask me, why didn't I ask Tomac that? Well, because I might be a little bit smarter than a pile of sticks. I knew he couldn't answer it, right? So I thought it was a creative way to potentially get some feedback that a lot of people know. And if it doesn't come true, it doesn't come true. Who cares? But I thought to myself, I have an opportunity here. AP is on the podium, and, so is Tomac on the podium. And there's massive rumors. I've heard from many people that it's basically a done deal, but it's just that. It won't be official until they actually release it. But let's play with it a little bit. And, I was like, well, let's ask AP about it, because if something is true, well, Tomac obviously rode the motorcycle, and AP was probably there, right? So anyway. If I got AP in trouble, I'm sorry. But again, he could have easily given me an answer of no. I've had Kenny give me answers, no. I've had Tomac give me one-word answers. I've had all those guys from a lot of the times that I've been at the press conferences there asking questions, okay? And again, I respect the riders, but I don't need to be friends with the riders. And the press conference is just that.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow,
brother, it's going to be awesome.
That's great. That's awesome. God bless AP. I mean, honestly, like, Hopper's cool, but don't put those guys in that position to do that. It's not.
Oh, I love JT's reaction here. Why not? Okay, every other sport does it. Innovation happens when we get out of our box. Why are the press conferences boring? Well, for one, there's 3 people there. And number 2, there's hardly any reactions out of the riders. And why can't we ask the hard questions? Why? Why is that a big deal? And truthfully, that wasn't a hard question. It was a hypothetical. It was a what if.
No, because AP's getting in trouble right now.
Yeah, 100%.
He's getting in trouble.
Yeah.
He was trying to be cool, and he was telling what he thinks, but for whatever reason, I don't know what the deal with the sport is. They don't want people to talk about it. It's super dumb.
Yep.
But he's getting in trouble.
Okay, so
Yep.
this is interesting, because they go about like how bad this is, but then they contradict themselves. Here, let's
These people watch too many White House press briefings.
That's funny. There is oh crap. Had to go back. There is people out there at the White Houses that are social media influencers that have tens of millions of views, and that's on the biggest stage. Okay, why is this such a a small pond of a sport when it could literally be an ocean. Maybe that's a bad analogy or comparison to make, but like truthfully, this stoicism as far as intimidating and impressing by saying less is massive. Okay, we know Tomac is that. And I honestly, I've made a lot of respect for Deegan by him answering some of the hard questions that I give him beautifully and giving proper reasoning for it to where there is no rebuttal. Okay, the last hard question I gave Deegan was about him taking out Cole Davies, and he was like, "Dude, this was for $500,000. Like, wouldn't you do that?" And I was like, "Yeah, most people would probably take out their grab up for $500,000. So it's done with." Right? But then he goes about his day and separates business from real life, So it's something that I wish the sport could do more of. Okay, back to
the PR team side of our sport sucks in many ways. Some are good, but many times it sucks. To try to get answers, to try to get people to do anything. The tail wags the dog, blah, blah, blah. But
so let's just continue to do more of the same.
Here, I'll give it to if PR did get Aaron, and if they did say something to Aaron, I get it, man. You just can't really do that. But God bless Aaron Plessinger. So I wouldn't want to put those guys in that position.
I don't need to be friends with the riders, okay? This is questions that the fans want to know. That's my perspective on things. That's why when I go to the races, I'm singled out in a lot of the media stuff, which is fine. I put myself there, but I'm trying to step out of the box. And you know what? I see a lot of people following me and then doing it better than me, which is awesome. I want people to be more successful than me. I've helped smaller channels grow to be bigger than me. That is my entire goal. And the press conferences should be more entertaining.
Professionally.
No. When you're doing it in front of the room, Steve, you pull them aside and be like, "Hey, I want to ask you about this. Can I do it?" They might be like, "Yeah, it's fine," or whatever. But when you are in front of the room, you really are putting them in a position where they have no way out.
Not possible. Okay, because you sit in the press conference, they come in, they sit down. When are you supposed to get up there and be like, "Hey, here's the 5 questions that I want to ask you. Let's vet them. What are you willing to say?" No, I don't go chase the riders to ask them questions after the fact. At the press conference, that's just that. That's them there to talk about the race and what's going on in motorcycle racing. That is what a press conference is for, in my opinion, when it comes to the MotoGP, to the F1.
What do you have, sir?
Fans made a petition to strip John Jones of the belt with almost 200,000 signatures. What are your thoughts on this?
So I think a fight between John Jones and Tom Aspinall is bigger if they are both champions. I'm hopeful they're going to fight in December in Las Vegas. I have no inside information, but I don't know that John Jones really gives a rip if they strip him of the heavyweight championship.
Yeah, I talked to a rider this week in the 250 class. I said, "Hey, I hear you're going back to that team." And he's like, "Yeah, I got an offer." And he was telling me about the bike's not that good, but it's hard to get rides, and he needs to sign. And I'm like, "Yeah, I agree, man. You should stay there. Like, stay there because it's a factory bike. And whatever, work with it, right?" And that's all stuff that's totally off the record that I'm not going to then ask the guy that in a conversation. I'm not going to blow him out like that, So I don't know.
I do feel that and I would love to know why, the sport is really missing an opportunity. We know that
is contradicting himself, saying, "Hey, you don't do this, but we should do this." And again, I asked a hypothetical. I felt like I lobbied it beautifully.
Silly season stuff in every sport, and from your own reporting, Steve, is a massive thing. And the fact that the teams, for some reason, are so incredibly scared of it when they should be leaning in. Everyone should be leaning in. The SMX League, as we call it, which is AMA, Feld, AMA collectively, the teams. MotoGP, you see it all the time, JT. They talk
F1.
about signing in April.
Yeah.
And they're going to race for this team for the next 8 months and be another team next year. And they talk about it. Why? Because it is massive publicity and interest from the fans. And here these teams are like, please, please, please do not talk about it.
Preach
and it's
it,
like,
Jason.
You're only hurting yourself here.
F1,
And by
same
the way,
thing.
agents do it.
NASCAR, same thing.
Doing NASCAR, yep.
I'll give you an
And
example.
by the way, in these stick and ball sports, the reason it's talked about so much is because the agents are so aware of how much publicity they can get for their clients. They purposely leak it to the media to purposely get it out there. Not only is it not secret, they want that out there. They want the equivalent would be Eli Tomac's side would be like, we want as many people to know that he has multiple offers to make every team nervous and maybe up their offer and get more publicity for my client. And here it's like, please do not talk about this.
The reigning MotoGP world champion put out a statement this past week saying, I will not be on an Aprilia in 2026. Like, he's the champ. And they're halfway through the season, and he's like,
It was actually
this is how it works. They told me I had to sign by this date, and I didn't, so I will not be here.
And I talked to Jorge about it, and they're pretty open about it, right? Yeah, thank you guys for saying how bad it is to ask small loaded questions, but then say that it should be, and we should start asking those questions. So let's change it. Let's change it. Let's do something differently. And if those guys don't want to answer my questions, they can not answer my questions like they have done tens of times before. But you know what? I still go to the press conference. And these are honest questions that I know, because I am a fan, want to know about. And so this is my point, as I will end with this. The reason why Moto Media needs to change is I believe there's a lot of lack of passion. I show up at the races with my cell phone, and I have one smaller other little camera, right? I don't have a $100,000 camera or all this stuff with me, because I believe that simplicity is the key to excellence. And for what I do, as far as from a technical, analytical standpoint, I can do the best with this small equipment. With this, 30 megapixel camera and then the other 4K camera, I can do everything that I need to do and get done and help teach the fans and try to answer questions that they generally want to know and hear. And I believe that Moto Media has a lack of passion involved with stuff, where when we go to the press conferences, we ask them, what did you change this week? Okay. What are you doing differently next weekend? All right, cool. Ask the questions. I'm out of here. We're going. It's why there was only 4 people at the press conference. When you go to the UFC press conferences and the F1 press conferences, it is a packed field, right? So therefore, we need to do something differently. And again, experience is best when it's not your own. There's literally a path that's been paved by other sports on how to do it correctly. We just need to do it. And am I the most professional guy? I sure as fuck try to be as professional as I possibly can. But you know what? There's people that can do it better. So let's just be the first one through the door to get run over, and then other people can do it better. That's all I ask. I respect these guys of what they've done, but I generally feel that when I go to the races a lot of the times, I see a lot of guys somewhat phoning it in. They're just there because there's so many races. I see the riders at times phoning it in because it's just like there's a lack of passion, enthusiasm there. I go to the races because I have passion, and the content that I create is because it's a direct result of my freaking passion. And I believe I do it well. So at the end of the day, I don't need to make friends. I am just proud of the content that I give to the viewers. That is my goal, is to bring the viewers decent content that they can think about. And ironically, I somewhat think that the sport should be using moments like these to help publicize the racing just in general. And I will just leave it at that.